Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conquered, the podcast about how global leaders conquer themselves before conquering the world. I am your host, Alex Wu. I apologize for taking so long to update. I have been traveling, but I'm glad that I took the time to really do my research and interviewed a few people, a few insiders, if you may. I've read a lot of the biographies about this person in Chinese and as well as some articles in the Forbes magazines and a few more recent interviews done in Chinese. In this third episode, we're talking about Wang Tao, or Frank Wang, founder and CEO of DJI, who built a kingdom of drones that took over the world by storm. To this date, in spite of the efforts of the US trying to ban the brand multiple times, DJI still dominates the world. It controls over 70% of the consumer drone market. Its technology and design are still far ahead of the competition. In 2026, DJI expect to bring in over $15 billion in revenue selling drones and cameras. And they're still a private company. Wang Tao, the stubborn engineer who was so persistent in making a helicopter hover 20 years ago, is still at the helm of DJI, plugging along every day. He is the inspiration for so many Chinese engineers to conquer the world with innovative products. Wang Tao keeps a very low public profile and he often wears round framed glasses, like in this photo, with a small tuft of beard on the center of his chin and a golf cap on his head. He didn't look like an engineer, but an artist. Most of the Chinese media refers to him as Wang Tao, and most of the Western media calls him Frank Wang. Inside DJI, he prefers Frank, I believe. Throughout this episode, I'm going to use these two names interchangeably, so don't get confused. Wang Tao and Frank Wang, they're the same person. I want to start by quoting him during an interview back in 2016. The world is just too dumb, unbelievably dumb. After I started working, I realized there are just too many unreliable people and things. The world is actually much more foolish than I imagined. Even many well-known figures, people we once saw and still see as almost godlike, their level really isn't that high. I question myself all the time. Am I just losing my mind here? I constantly ask whether my judgment is off. But in the end, I still come back to the same conclusion. This world is pretty dumb. I appreciate Steve Jobs' ideas, but there's no one I truly admire. All you need to do is to be smarter than others. There needs to be a distance from the masses. If you can create that distance, you will be successful. That might sound extremely arrogant, but back in 2016, DJI dominated the consumer drone market by taking almost 80% of the global market share. DJI was like Apple for drones, so don't judge him just yet. Probably by the end of this episode, you will understand where he is coming from. In this episode, I will cover a few things. First, Wang Tao's obsession with helicopter since early childhood. Second, his prolonged college days that lead to the founding of DJI. 3, his controlling character. And number 4, how DJI entered the US market with Colin Green. Number 5, what technical capability sets DJI apart from competitions. And 6, how Wang Tao created and poured his heart into RoboMaster, a robot competition that aims to inspire the next generation of engineers, but also served as a critical recruiting machine. And 7, how DJI continue to dominate in drones even to this date. But first, we go back to where the flying dream started. Wang Tao was born in 1980 in Hangzhou, Zhejiang province. His father is an engineer and his mom is a teacher. His parents later would start a business in Shenzhen, and they were doing quite well. The whole family relocated to Shenzhen when Wang Tao was in elementary school. Fun facts: Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, was also born in the city of Hangzhou. But Jack is a generation older than Wang Tao. On the other hand, Huang Zheng, for those of you who don't know, the founder of Pinduoduo, a publicly traded company that owns Temu, was also born and raised in Hangzhou. In fact, Wang Tao and Huang Zheng went to the same middle school and high school. It is called Hangzhou Foreign Languages School, or Hangwai. It is one of the most respected schools in Zhejiang province. Wang Tao and Huang Zheng were 1 year apart. I don't think they have ever met. The school is a boarding school. Wang Tao was sent there partly because his parents were really busy running the business in Shenzhen, and they don't have much time to take care of Wang Tao. According to Wang Tao himself, his obsession with drones started with a red helicopter that he saw in a children's picture book. He got hooked immediately, and he dreamed about having a model helicopter of his own. I quote Wang Tao here, quote, "When I was in my first year of high school, my parents finally bought me one remotely controlled helicopter. But for a year or two, I couldn't get it to fly. Either I assembled it wrong or some parts broke. Back then, I thought to myself, one day I want to build something that is easy to fly." Many years later, DJI made the Mavic Mini. It's light, only 250 grams, foldable, and nimble enough to avoid obstacles. If you could travel back in time and hand that thing to my high school self, I would probably have slept with it in my arms every night. Haha. End quote. So Wang Tao is a great student in school, but he's not exceptional. He got into East China Normal University in Shanghai in 1999 through the national entrance test. It is a well-respected, comprehensive university, but its engineering program is mediocre. Wang Tao picked electrical engineering as his major. However, he feels more and more frustrated as years go by because he's not learning things that he wants to learn. So he drops out in junior year. He simply couldn't stand wasting any more time at East China Normal University. He then started applying to top engineering schools in the United States, like Stanford and MIT. He did not get in either of those, but fortunately, he applied to Hong Kong University of Science and Technology as well, and he got in. Notice that Wang Tao did not choose to get the bachelor degree first and apply to a graduate program abroad. He did not want to compromise. So 2 observations that I made. First, he knows what he wants and is not afraid to pursue it. Remember in episode 1 where I talked about Zhang Yiming of ByteDance switching majors from electrical engineering to software engineering? Wang Tao took it to another level. He dared to start fresh at a completely different university. His parents probably got really angry. Second, he is super confident in himself and ambitious, almost in a naive fashion. He was aiming for Stanford and MIT, the best engineering colleges in the world. He is shooting for top of the world quality, apparently. I think that explains why he aims to create world-class products later in his career. Anyway, before we put his college days at East China Normal University behind him, there were 2 more things worth mentioning. One is that he met his wife there in college, and secondly, he acquired his design taste through art classes. There's not much coverage on this fact, but I find it crucial to Wang Tao's future success in product design. I quote a commencement speech by the East China Normal University principal in 2023. Frank Wang, our alumnus and founder of DJI, spent 3 years at our university studying in the Department of Electronics. Beyond his passion for innovation and entrepreneurship, he also had a deep love for art. His wife, also our alumna, not only graduated from the same department, but later pursued graduate studies in fine arts. During their time at the university, she fully understood and enthusiastically supported Wang's technological explorations. In their abilities and characters, they embody a fusion of East and West and a seamless blend of art and technology. Their shared qualities, humility, diligence, originality, and aesthetic sensitivity, are reflected in the elegant form and agile spirit of DJI's drones, which now lead the global industry. The dozen or so ergonomically refined and elegantly crafted wooden chairs placed throughout our campus were personally designed by Wang and gifted to his alma mater. That is amazing. Wang Tao actually designed some wooden chairs. I couldn't find any pictures, so I just asked AI to imagine what that chair might look like. So I put it up here. What do you guys think? Let me take a tangent here and talk about another world-class entrepreneur, James Dyson. I was reading James Dyson's biography when I was working on Wang Tao's episode, and there's so many parallels that I can draw between Dyson and Wang Tao. Dyson attended the most prestigious art school in London, Royal College of Art, and developed engineering knowledge later in his career. They both stand at the intersection of great engineering and great design. Dyson with the vacuum cleaner and Wang Tao with the drones. They both have a unique taste in product. Both of them are about absolute control over every little detail of the product. And finally, they both met their wives in college. For some reason, that is quite common in the founders that I've covered so far. If you listen to the first episodes, Zhang Yiming and Jensen Huang met their wives in college too. So very interesting. Now back to Wang Tao's journey. The year is 2003. Wang Tao is already 23 years old. Most people are finishing college at this point. Wang Tao was just starting over. At Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, HKUST in short, his third choice. In hindsight, he was exactly where he needed to be, a university that was quietly building the future of hardware in Asia. HKUST in the early 2000s was barely 10 years old. Founded in 1991, it is young and hungry. This is not an old, theoretical, ivory tower institution. This is a university designed from day one to compete with MIT and Stanford. And unlike universities in mainland China at the time, engineering at HKUST is not about passing exams. It was about making things and making them work, not just in the lab, but in the real world. In a broader context, after the Asian financial crisis of 1997, policymakers of Hong Kong realized that the city needed a new engine of growth beyond real estate, banking, and financial services. They wanted Hong Kong to become competitive on knowledge, innovation, and technology. Universities can be engines of economic transformation and innovation ecosystems. HKUST is at the center of that initiative. And at the center of the engineering department of HKUST is one professor. I am quoting the following from the school website. Professor Lee joined the School of Engineering in 1992 in the formative days of HKUST. After 13 years of exploring robotics and artificial intelligence research at Carnegie Mellon University, UC Berkeley, MIT, and NYU. As early as 1998, he set up the university's Automation Technology Center. In early 2000s, experiential learning began to feature in Professor Lee's teaching at the School of Engineering. One of the first students to take his class, providing training for the Hong Kong section of RoboCon, a robotics competition organized by the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, was Frank Wang Tao, who later became the founder of DJI. In 2004, the first year the Hong Kong contest was held, the HKUST team did not win, but the students' interest had been fired up, and the next year they did triumph, subsequently earning a place among the top 3 in the Asia Pacific final in Beijing. End quote. Professor Lee would play a very important role in Wang Tao's journey and DJI's early days, so let's put a pin in it and we will come back later. I do know that Professor Lee is from Hunan, which is where I'm coming from. That's a special connection. Shout out to Professor Lee. By the way, yeah, when he speaks, you can clearly tell that he has accent, a Hunan accent for sure. More about RoboCon. This robotics competition really opens the door for Wang Tao. He got really into robotics and it became his life of work. I actually found an old YouTube video with some footage from the 2005 competition. It was quite interesting. The competition was very open-ended. Robots with different designs. The contest is about winning by scoring more points rather than destroying opponents. HKUST beat Japan in the quarterfinal but lost to Beijing Institute of Technology in the semifinal. Wang Tao was in his junior year, and you could see him wearing an orange vest in the video, as pointed out in this screenshot. More context about RoboCon. It is not a popular contest even among engineering students. There are no actual credits for school, and it does not lead to research papers either. The students who join are really a group of geeks. They need to integrate mechanical design, electronics, software, control systems, and testing in a real project, which is exponentially more complex than typical lab assignments. Students also have to work long hours together, power through breakdowns and failures, creating bounds and problem-solving confidence that shape habits for future careers. Wang Tao benefited tremendously from this experience, and later he would hire so many past RoboCon participants to join DJI. And as we will get into later, Wang Tao would start his own robotic competition to compete with RoboCon. After 2 years of practice at RoboCon, Wang Tao is ready to pursue his childhood dream, to control a model helicopter. In 2006, for his final thesis, rather than asking his professor for ideas, he picked his own topic, model helicopter hover control. It is a very challenging topic. The unmanned model helicopter is extremely hard to control because there are so many variables affecting the stability of a helicopter. Most of the researchers were able to control the model plane to take off and land, but very few were able to make the helicopter hover at a certain height. At the time, there were less than 10 labs in the world that could get it working. Yet Wang Tao decides to take on this challenge head-on with 2 classmates. And of course, he worked very hard for a few months. But unfortunately, the dissertation presentation went really poorly. His helicopter couldn't even take off. He got a C. A few years later, the instructor who gave Wang Tao the C on the project recalled the incident in a blog post. Quote, "What happened was Wang Tao spent half an hour trying to get the helicopter to fly, but it never lifted off. The project was a flight control system with very little theoretical work behind it. If the helicopter couldn't fly, it essentially meant the system wasn't working. And with other students watching nearby, giving him a high grade would have been unfair. If Wang Tao had managed to get it airborne, even if it crashed afterward, I wouldn't have given such a low grade." I still remember the beads of sweat on Wang Tao's forehead and the look of despair in his eyes as I turned and walked away. End quote. Also, in Wang Tao's own words, this was a really difficult project. If you wanted a high grade, you normally wouldn't choose it. I picked it purely out of interest and because I genuinely believed I could make it work. During that time, every day I told myself, tomorrow it'll fly. In reality, it had never taken off before the final presentation. I just hoped that on the day of the presentation, maybe I could pull off a miracle. After that, over the winter break, I pushed hard for another 3 weeks, day and night, completely immersed, and finally got it to fly. In the end, I was just 3 weeks short. End quote. That's a perfect example of fake it until you make it. But it was unfortunate because Wang Tao's goal is to go to MIT, Stanford for graduate school. But this is now a dead end because he did so poorly in the final thesis presentation. Professor Li Zexiang is here to his rescue. Here's a quote from a Forbes article. Quote, Robotics Professor Li Zexiang noticed Wang's group leadership and technical understanding and brought the headstrong student into the school's graduate program. I couldn't tell that Frank was smarter than others, says Li, who served as an early advisor and investor to DJI and now owns about 10% as its chairman. But good performance at work was not necessarily comparable with good grades. Li was absolutely right. Wang Tao got his control unit working in no time. Even better, he was able to sell the unit for more than $6,000, and it only cost $2,000 to make. Li Zexiang encouraged Wang Tao to start a company to sell this thing. That has always been Li's plan, to encourage his students to embrace entrepreneurship, to embrace the market. And for Wang Tao himself, watching his parents running a business since he was little, I think he wants to run his own company too. So in November 2006, Jiang Innovation is founded in Shenzhen, DJI for short. Wang Tao has some seed money from his parents and opens shop in a spare warehouse generously provided by his uncle. In the early days of DJI, Wang Tao has no vision, no money, and no real product. But for some reason, one of his family friends, Ludi, invested $90,000 in the company and became the CFO. It was reported that Ludi owns 16% of DJI around 2015, worth about $1.6 billion. Wang Tao recruited a few college graduates to help him build more flight control units. He taught these early employees everything, but he's very hard to work with. He has a very high standard for everything, and is especially paranoid about product quality. He likes to work well into the night and expects other people to be there with him. He's crazy about every little detail, including how tight each screw should be, and there are hundreds of screws. In 2007, most of the early team members left the company and started their own drone companies inspired by Wang Tao, but ended up competing with DJI. Rumor says that the early team members left because they were not satisfied with the equity that Wang Tao offered. But according to Wang Tao himself, it was merely an excuse, because later he discovered that those employees were poached by a competitor a long time ago, and they started working secretly for that competitor already while still employed at DJI. Anyway, this would not be the last time that Wang Tao fights over equity numbers with partners. When DJI enters North America, Wang Tao and his business partner ended up in court fighting over share percentages, and we will cover that story later. Now, back to Wang Tao in 2007. Struggling operationally and financially on a daily basis, Professor Li Zexiang is there again to help DJI, but even he admitted that the company was in a bad shape. He recalled, everyone left except for one bookkeeper. A competitor even offered to buy the technology from DJI for merely $20,000. Wang Tao was even a little tempted, but he turned it down because the offer was too low. Think about it, $20,000 for DJI back in 2007. Li Zhexiang spent a lot of time recruiting college graduates from HKUST and other top engineering universities to work for DJI. In 2008, he teamed up with Zhu Xiaorui, a professor from Harbin Institute of Technology, to invest $180,000 in DJI. Zhu Xiaorui also became the chief scientist, and she continues to recruit her own graduate students to work at DJI. Early days of DJI for Wang Tao is like climbing Mount Everest, both metaphorically and literally, because the team has been working hard to make the unmanned helicopter fly at Mount Everest. They finally made it in September 2009. The success got DJI a fair amount of media coverage. And you're looking at the picture they took near the mountain. Wang Tao and Li Zhexiang are the two on the right. From 2006 to 2009, Wang Tao kept iterating on the flight control unit called XP, from XP1 to XP2 to XP 3.1. They were getting steady orders. Also, with the core team settling down, DJI started exploring other market opportunities. They released Ace-1, a much lighter and cheaper control module in 2009, and that is a big success. Now it's a good time to really understand what goes into the flight control unit that DJI has been focusing on. Note that Wang Tao was still working on his master's degree part-time since 2006. And in 2011, he finally graduated from HKUST under Professor Li. Wang Tao's master thesis is available online, and it focuses on the design of XP 3.1. So that's convenient. I quote Wang Tao from the acknowledge page from the thesis. I am heartily thankful to my supervisor, Professor Li Zhexiang, whose encouragement, guidance, and support from the initial to the final level enabled me to develop an understanding of the subject. Lastly, I offer my regards and blessings to all of those who supported me in any respect during the completion of the project. End quote. In this paper, Wang Tao mainly talked about the hardware design for the flight control unit of an unmanned helicopter and the control algorithm implementation. The title is Control Systems for Autonomous Helicopters. It is essentially about one thing. How do you make a helicopter hover autonomously? That sounds simple, but in reality, it's one of the hardest problems in robotics. You might think all of the robots are humanoid because how insanely popular they are right now. That is far from the truth. Unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV, or drone, has always been a focus area for robotic researchers. When we talk about drones, you think of quadcopters with 4 sets of rotors. They are popular because they're much easier to control versus helicopters with only one giant rotor. Wang Tao decided to tackle helicopters. The research is basically a continuation of his undergrad final project. A helicopter is naturally unstable. If you slightly tilt the rotor, the aircraft accelerates in that direction, and if you slightly overcorrect, it accelerates the other way. Tiny errors quickly amplify. To make autonomous helicopter works, first it needs to know what is happening. Modern drones answer these questions using a collection of sensors. Most importantly, something called an IMU, Inertial Measurement Unit. An IMU contains gyroscopes and accelerometers. Gyroscopes are used to measure angular speed, and accelerometers are used to measure regular speed. And if you're watching this podcast on your phone, you're using one already because every smartphone has an IMU. Say you are watching this on YouTube, when you rotate your phone from portrait to landscape, the phone determines orientation change with the IMU, and the YouTube app automatically switches to widescreen. In Wang Tao's design, the flight controller uses IMU to measure acceleration, parameters to estimate altitude, digital compass for direction, GPS for position. All of these sensors are commodity components thanks to the evolution of smartphones. The real magic happens in how their signals are combined. Wang Tao has a CPU taking all of the sensor information in, fusing them together, and sending control signals to the main rotor and the tail rotor. It takes the measurement again and tries to make adjustments constantly. It runs in a loop, and this is called a feedback loop. Again, none of these technologies are unique. Sensors, feedback loop, control theory, all of these existed long before. So why did Wang Tao succeed? The answer lies in integration and iteration. Wang Tao spent years crashing helicopters and rebuilding them. Every crash was a data point. Every failure helped refine the system. He learned things that aren't written in textbooks. Where exactly should the sensors be placed to minimize vibration? And how should parameters change for different rotor configurations? How do you tune a controller differently for a gasoline helicopter versus an electric one? How do you make the system reliable enough that ordinary people can fly it? These details are what separate a research prototype from a real product. James Dyson followed the exact same playbook. He spent 5 years in his home lab working on prototypes for bagless vacuum cleaners. He would only change one thing at a time, and it took him 5,127 failures to get to the design that worked perfectly. He didn't even go to an engineering school, and yet he is the one who reinvented the vacuum cleaner. And that is the power of iteration. Besides hovering, Wang Tao did one more thing that is critical. It was only mentioned briefly in the paper, buried under math equations and diagrams. The section is titled Stabilization of Gimbal. I quote, "Currently, most of the UAVs are for monitoring or taking photos and videos from air by the onboard cameras. However, the aircraft is not a stable platform because of the vibrations caused by the engines, rotors, mechanical structures, and the inclines required by the flights. If the camera or camcorder is equipped onto the aircraft directly, the pictures of the videos captured will be fuzzy. So a camera or camcorder is usually equipped onto the gimbal. The role of the gimbal is to make the camera do the movements of a certain degree of freedom to obtain the required shooting angle and view." Wang Tao filed multiple patents on gimbal driven by brushless DC motors, and it was such an elegant design, and it became the standard for all of the drones coming afterwards. Brushless DC motor is one of the most important inventions in modern days. It not only powers rotors on the drones, drives the gimbal, it is also one of the key components in your Dyson vacuum cleaner, your Dyson hair dryer, your Tesla or other electrical vehicles, even the joints on humanoid robots. In recent years, brushless DC motor advanced significantly thanks to advancement in power electronics, control algorithms, and new permanent magnetic materials, according to a patent filed by Wang Tao. The brushless DC motors have the following benefits. 1. Reliable performance, reduced wear and or malfunction rate, and a longer service life, about 6 times than that of a brushed motor due to commutation with electronics instead of mechanical commutators. 2. No load current because brushless DC motors are static motors. 3. High efficiency. And 4. Small size. Now, the year is 2010. DJI has been growing steadily and built a reputation among hobbyists. The market it is in is still very niche. So far, DJI has been focusing on helicopters only, but Wang Tao started hearing more and more about multi-rotor drone, especially quadcopter, the drone with 4 rotors around the body. Even though it carries less weight, flies slower, it is cheap to design and easy to control. So Wang Tao decided to start investing in quadcopter as well. Porting over the flight control design from helicopter to quadcopter is smooth, and in 2011, they released Wukong, a flight control unit for multi-rotor drone. It was very well received by customers around the world. And note that in the early days of DJI, the majority of the revenue was coming from abroad. It has always been Wang Tao's plan to conquer the world with his products. He is about to find just the right partner to enter the most important market in the world, the United States. I am quoting the Forbes article here. DJI's started making more advanced flight controllers with autopilot functions, which Wang then marketed at niche trade shows like a radio-controlled helicopter gathering in the 70,000 population town of Muncie, Indiana in 2011. It was in Muncie that Wang first met Colin Gwynn, a well-built Texan whose angular good looks once graced reality TV show The Amazing Race. Gwynn, who ran an aerial cinematography startup, was looking for a way to shoot stabilized video from a UAV and had reached out to Wang by email to see if the young Chinese company had a solution. Wang was working on exactly what Gwynn needed, a new kind of gimbal that used onboard accelerometers to adjust its orientation on the fly. So the video frame remained still despite a drone's shaky flying. Wang had gone through at least 3 gimbal prototypes and 1 incapable intern before he had a decent one. Wang figured out how to connect the drone's motor to the gimbal so it wouldn't need its own motor, cutting down on parts and weight. By 2011, the cost to make a flight controller had dropped to less than $400 from $2,000 in 2006. After initially meeting DJI executives in Muncie in August 2011, Gwynn flew out to Shenzhen and eventually formed DJI North America, an Austin, Texas subsidiary aimed at delivering drones to the mass market. With Wang's blessing, Gwynn was given 48% ownership of the entity, with DJI retaining the remaining 52%. Gwynn was put in charge of North America sales and much of its English language marketing, quickly developing a new model for the company, the future of possible. The relationship initially went well. Wang remembers Gwynn as a great salesman whose ideas sometimes inspired me. End quote. When I first learned about this, I couldn't wrap my head around the equity split because I was under the impression that Wang Tao is all about control. Yet he was so generous to offer Colin 48%. Maybe because Wang Tao wasn't that confident in the venture, because no one knows about DJI at the time in the United States, and drones were such a niche market back in 2011. Yeah, he wanted to incentivize Colin to work really hard, but little did Wang Tao realize that the timing of his technology could not have been better. Around 2010, social media platforms were entering a new phase of growth. Smartphones made it incredibly easy to capture and upload photos and videos. YouTube and Instagram changed the way people share content. At the same time, a generation of compact action cameras was emerging. GoPro, founded by Nick Woodman, had become largely popular among surfers, snowboarders, and extreme sports enthusiasts. These cameras were small, rugged, and capable of capturing high-quality, wide-angle video in places traditional cameras could not go. Suddenly, people could strap cameras to helmets, bicycles, and surfboards to record their adventures. But there was still one perspective that remained incredibly difficult to capture: the aerial view. For decades, just look at that. For decades, aerial cinematography required renting a helicopter. which could cost thousands of dollars per day. Only big Hollywood productions or large television networks could afford it. For ordinary creators, aerial footage was almost impossible. Drones could be a game changer. And this was what Colin Green saw the potential in DJI to democratize aerial videos. DJI happened to be the right product in the right place at the right time that combines flight stability with camera stabilization. These drones stop being just flying machines and become flying cameras. And in a world increasingly driven by visual storytelling and social media, a flying camera turns out to be one of the most powerful tools imaginable. So far, we have covered flight control and gimbal. There's one more key element to a flying camera, and that is video transmission or a live video feed. We're not going to get into the details, but Wang Tao made these three, flight control, gimbal, and video transmission, the three pillars of a complete drone product and user experience. I quote the Forbes article. By late 2012, DJI had put all the pieces together for a complete drone package: software, propellers, frame, gimbal, and remote control. The company unveiled the Phantom in January 2013, the first ready-to-fly, pre-assembled quadcopter that could be up in the air within an hour of its unboxing and wouldn't break apart with its first crash. Its simplicity and ease of use unlocked the market beyond obsessed enthusiasts. So the retail price is only $679. It does not come with a camera though, so you would have to buy a GoPro camera separately, which costs about $400. In fact, Phantom 1 does not have a gimbal nor video transmission. You have to wait for Phantom 2 to get those capabilities. But the world still went crazy about the Phantom 1. Initially, DJI set the internal target to 3,000 units per month. Then they're getting tens of thousands of orders every month. Colin, the CEO of DJI North America, was working hard as well. He handled the social media content strategy. He started uploading content to YouTube and brokering strategic partnerships, most famously with GoPro, the hottest action camera brand at the time. I am quoting a story in a Forbes article. In February 2013, Colin approached Woodman, founder and CEO of GoPro, in the parking lot at GoPro's headquarters. As Woodman tried to brush him aside, Gwyn, an enthusiastic salesman, launched DJI's new Phantom drone into the air. The device immediately entranced Woodman, who grew up piloting remote-controlled gliders in the hills near his family's home in Atherton, California. The GoPro CEO spent the next hour flying the drone, delaying a few meetings in the process. Great story. I think Colin is a great salesman, and he's just very creative and spontaneous in a way. He's a great showman. Gwyn then arranged Frank and Woodman to meet a few times to discuss how the two companies could work together. Back in 2013, GoPro was one of the hottest tech companies in the world, valued at over $2 billion. DJI, on the other hand, was tiny. According to Frank, Woodman was very arrogant and insisted on 2/3 of the profit, leaving 1/3 to DJI. I guess GoPro is treating DJI as a contract manufacturer, basically, because the GoPro brand is very well known in the US. But Frank sees it differently. He thinks that the drone is more important, and he wants 2/3 of the profit. The official collaboration did not happen between the two companies, and legend goes that said yes to GoPro's proposal without getting Frank's approval, and Frank was furious. Frank was also mad at Gwyn for taking too many credits in DJI's success. I quote, "By May 2013, DJI attempted to buy out Gwing's stake in DJI North America, offering DJI global shares that would give the American a paltry 0.3% stake, according to court documents. Gwing demurred, pointing out that it was his office work that led to 30% of Phantoms being sold in the US. DJI did not leave room for negotiation, and by December had locked all of DJI North America's employees out of their emails and redirected all customers' payments to China headquarters. By New Year's Eve, the employees had been fired, and arrangements were being made to liquidate the Austin office's equipment. DJI ended the year with $130 million in revenue. Gwing subsequently sued in early 2014, though the parties eventually settled out of court in August for an undisclosed amount under $10 million, according to sources. And here's one more quote from Gwing years later. "To say I had nothing to do with the Phantom would be hilarious, just as it would be to say I was the inventor of the Phantom would be hilarious." By the way, the slogan that Colin came up with, "The future of possible," is still being used today. I was able to find the court filings on this case with the restraining order. Let's hear Colin's side of story. I quote, "DJI North America's success was meteoric. Under Gwing's leadership, DJI North America achieved this growth through a comprehensive business strategy that was expertly crafted and implemented through the tireless efforts of Gwing and his highly talented team. DJI North America's successful strategy included a 5-pronged attack. 1. A comprehensive rebranding effort. 2. A significant internet and social media presence. 3. The product's use in the entertainment industry. 4. The product's appearances at trade show presentations. And 5. The development of strategic partnerships." With DJI North America achieving critical mass in the United States, riding the wave of consumer goodwill and notoriety it created, and achieving significant sales in the United States, DJI North America's success began to eclipse DJI Global itself. I think that is very telling. At the time, Colin strongly believed that his branding and marketing efforts were the main reasons why DJI was such a success in the United States. After parting ways with DJI, he joined forces with 3D Robotics, DJI's biggest competitor in the US at the time. 3D Robotics was founded by Chris Anderson, former Wired magazine editor-in-chief. Chris was one of the legends in personal computer and robotics, and specifically drones. He created DIY Drones, an online community for drone enthusiasts back in 2007. Legend goes that in the early days of DJI, Frank actually spent a lot of time on DIY Drones forums to read posts, to get insights and stay up to date on the latest news on drones. Chris Anderson co-founded 3D Robotics in 2009, raising over $120 million over the years for the company. I'm quoting another Forbes article on the 3D Robotics. By late 2013, Gwing's relationship with DJI had soured, and he was forced out after the company shuttered its Austin operation. Gwing sued and took his revenge one step further by joining 3D Robotics the following February. With his fellow former DJI America employees in tow, Gwing, as Chief Revenue Officer, set up an Austin office for 3D Robotics that handled marketing and sales. In meetings, he would always say, "I want to fucking kill DJI," remembered one former 3D Robotics employee. Together, Gwing and Anderson dreamed up the Solo, that's the name of the drone, to challenge the Phantom's hegemony. Instead of white, Solo would be black and offer features such as scripted flight path, open code for developers, and responsive customer service that DJI lacked at the time. Despite its relatively steady do-it-yourself parts business that was bringing in $10 million a year, 3D Robotics focused all its resources on its new drone and acquired Siftio, a consumer electronics game maker with no prior drone experience, to form the project's core engineering team. I looked it up. Siftio makes interactive gaming cubes that are motion aware with a touchscreen. Definitely zero experience in robotics or drones. That is for sure a red flag, and it shows that 3D Robotics clearly underestimates how hard it is to mass produce drones. Continuing the quote, when 3D Robotics launched Solo in April 2015 at the National Association of Broadcaster Conference in Las Vegas, The Verge said, "It may be the smartest drone ever," extolling the device's self-piloting features and its control of an onboard GoPro camera. Drone followers also celebrated that there was now alternative to the Phantom, a prospect that worried 3D Robotics' main competitor. That spring, DJI founder and CEO Frank Wang traveled to Berkeley to talk with Anderson and offered to buy the company outright, according to one person who witnessed the meeting. The 3D Robotics CEO, who was about to start shipping Solo, declined. 3D Robotics was in for the long haul. I think Anderson's confidence partly comes from software. He sees 3D Robotics as Android and DJI as Apple, where unlike DJI's closed operating system, 3D Robotics makes its OS open source to attract developers. He says, "If everyone is using our software, then we, not DJI, will control the market." I think he drew parallels between the personal drone market and the personal computer market. He famously wrote an article titled, "How I Accidentally Kickstarted the Domestic Drone Boom." But Anderson really underestimated how hard the hardware is for drones. Let's see what happens next. Quote, former employees at 3D Robotics told Forbes that they noticed issues with Solo as soon as the devices hit the shelves of Best Buy in June 2015. "Things were never going to plan after the Solo launch," said one. "The drone's GPS system sometimes failed to connect correctly to ensure stable flight, causing the drone to fly away or crash. The gimbal, or camera stabilizing device, faced production delays, and the first Solos hit the market without this add-on, making it unsuitable for photos and videos, the chief use of most consumer drones. Making the gimbal was harder than making the drone," said Gwyn, who noted that the device didn't get to customers until August, a full 2 months after Solo's launch. 3D Robotics did not make their own cameras, but choose to work with GoPro. While GoPro is the official camera partner for Solo, it has been working on its own drone for quite a while, since the partnership talk broke down with DJI. GoPro urgently needs another growth story following the IPO in June 2014. And the name of that drone is Karma. Interesting choice. After a few launch delays, GoPro finally introduced Karma in September 2016. Unfortunately, all of the shipped Karmas were recalled a month later following a series of crashes. After calling in multiple experts to debug the issue, it was determined that a loose battery connection was the culprit. So by now, consumers lost faith in both Karma and Solo. It turns out that Wang Tao and DJI did not need GoPro. They don't need Gwyn as marketing partners either. Wang Tao is very serious about controlling every little detail. DJI started working on their own camera after the GoPro deal went south. In October 2013, Phantom 2 Vision was launched with a built-in camera and a live video feed to smartphone over Wi-Fi. Then in 2014, DJI released Phantom 2 Vision Plus with 3-axis brushless gimbal to enable stabilized video with an improved camera. In 2015, Phantom 3 made the product much more complete and mainstream with integrated 12 megapixel camera and 4K video. In 2016, Phantom 4 was a major jump in intelligence and autonomy. The drone could now track subjects and avoid collisions, thanks to the advanced computer vision algorithm developed internally. And don't get me wrong, Phantoms were not perfect. They had quality issues as well, and they were criticized a lot for bad customer service initially. But they kept iterating and improving at a pace that no competition can keep up. Also, their strength in supply chain ensures that they dictate the retail price and rake in the majority of the profits in the market. There was also a story about an internal meeting in 2016 that I find super interesting and insightful, where Wang Tao wrote Boeing down on the whiteboard and told everyone that DJI ought to see Boeing as a competitor, because the goal for catastrophic failure rate at Boeing was 1 in 5 million, and DJI's failure rate was 1 in 2 million at the time. There's still a long way to go. And you can see that the fact that DJI tries to compare themselves to Boeing, it shows that they take product quality and safety very seriously. And they're shooting for world-class quality. They're trying to make world-class products. And that is far, far ahead of their competitors. By the end of 2016, DJI reinvented itself and launched Mavic Pro. The game is over for consumer drones pretty much, because it redefined what a drone could be. For the first time, a powerful aerial camera could fold down small enough to fit into a backpack without sacrificing performance. Mavic expanded the market from hobbyists to millions of everyday creators, cementing DJI's dominance and changing how the world captures itself from above. The product manager behind this revolutionary product is Tao Ye, who joined DJI around 2012 and quickly became one of the key leaders at DJI. In 2020, he left DJI and started a company called Bamboo Lab, now the global leader in 3D printing. It is complete domination by DJI. Since 2015, DJI had over 70% of the global consumer drone market. GoPro very soon cut karma and lost 98% of its peak valuation in the next few years. 3D Robotics also gave up on drone hardware and pivoted to become a pure software provider. Meanwhile, DJI's revenue number has been soaring. They made $500 million in 2014, $1 billion in sales in 2015, and $1.5 billion in 2016. DJI won the consumer drone war within just 10 years of its founding. When I was researching this part of the story, I kept asking myself, why DJI? It was clearly not sales and marketing. If that were the decisive factor, then Colin Gwynn and Chris Anderson should have been able to make 3D Robotics the winner. They were charismatic, aggressive, and deeply connected to the American drone scene. It was also not brand power. If brand alone were enough, then GoPro should have crushed DJI. GoPro had the hotter consumer brand, a much stronger presence in the United States, and a huge head start in action cameras. So why did DJI win? I think because consumer drones are not commodities like computer hardware. A drone is much harder to get right than many people realized. It is not just a flying gadget. It is an extremely demanding integrated system. You're talking about flight control, gimbal stabilization, camera, battery, software, video transmission, mechanical design, manufacturing, and reliability all have to work together. If any one of these pieces fail, the whole experience breaks down. Also, the consumer drone market is very small. It's way smaller than personal computers or smartphones. In practice, this meant there's room for only one dominant winner. And that winner is DJI because DJI has the best technology, integration, consumer experience, and the best cost structure. Its products are not just more advanced, they are more complete. And at the center of all of this is, of course, Wang Tao. In many ways, Wang Tao to DJI is what Steve Jobs to Apple. Not just a founder, but the soul of the company. He's the person at DJI who defines what world-class is. Wang Tao is deeply idealistic. He has little interest in compromise and little patience for mediocrity. What motivates him are world-class technology-driven products, hardcore engineering brought all the way to the level of user experience. That, I think, is the key. Wang Tao did not just care about technology, he had great taste, probably from the art classes that he took back in college. And by taste, I don't just mean cosmetic aesthetics. I mean the ability to judge what really matters in a technology product, what customers truly care about, which details are decisive, which trade-offs are acceptable, and what the final experience should feel like when the product is done right. That is the hard part. The easy part, relatively speaking, is implementation. Once you know what the product should be, strong engineers can go build it. But knowing what to build, what to remove, what to prioritize, and what must never be compromised, that is much rare. Wang Tao had that ability. That is one of the reasons he reminded me so much of Steve Jobs. Both men were intense, obsessive, and at times extremely difficult. Both had very strong opinions about what a product should be. Both pushed far beyond what normal managers would tolerate. And both believed that truly great products come from deep conviction, not consensus. Wang Tao is more technical than Steve, of course. His, on some level, both Jobs and Wozniak in a way in the drone universe. And that is my take. Wang Tao eventually articulated 4 core values at DJI. 1. Pursue excellence passionately. 2. Commit yourself fully. 3. Seek truth. And 4. Uphold integrity in products. These values were not just slogans. Wang Tao embodied them himself, and he expected the same from the people around him. And that made DJI a very unusual company for ambitious engineers. It could feel almost like a utopia. If you wanted to build amazing robots, solve hard technical problems, and work with other highly capable people, DJI was one of the most exciting places in China to be at the time. The expectation was simple. Do serious engineering, build world-class products. No politics, no excuses. Of course, the cost of that culture was high. Wang Tao could be harsh, even cruel, and yet many people stayed. Partly because the work was meaningful, partly because the products were extraordinary, and partly because DJI rewarded top talents very well. In good years, bonuses could equal an entire year's salary. If you were among the best, Wang Tao made sure that you are rewarded generously. Over time, Wang Tao also built a system to scale his product philosophy. One of the most important roles inside DJI became the product manager. But they do not come from business or management background. A typical path is R&D engineer, then product engineer, then product manager. To own a product at DJI, you had to understand both the customer and the technology at a deep level. You have to develop great taste. Wang Tao himself was, and still is, DJI's #1 product manager. But to grow the company, he needs more product managers like him. For many years, one of Wang Tao's favorite recruiting pools was Robocon, the robotic competition that changed his life in college. Wang Tao liked students with Robocon experience because they were hands-on, competitive, technically capable, and emotionally invested in robotics. They had already learned how hard it is to build real systems under pressure. As DJI became more successful, Wang Tao gained more resources, and with those resources, he decided not only to recruit from robotic competitions, but to create one of his own. That is how RoboMaster was born. RoboMaster was not just a competition, it was an extension of Wang Tao's worldview. His belief in engineering excellence, truth-seeking, hands-on problem-solving, and the importance of building a stage for the next generation of technical talent. I found a rare speech that Wang Tao gave at the conclusion of the first ever RoboMaster competition in 2015. It was hosted in Shenzhen, and here is the full speech. Good evening, everyone. This is the first official RoboMaster competition we've ever organized, and it has finally come to an end. I know many of you may feel that there is still a lot to improve, and there are some small regrets, but I am very happy that we've taken the first step. In future competitions, we will learn from this experience and take it to a whole new level. Today, I want to talk about why DJI and myself personally decided to create RoboMaster in the first place. Over the past 30 years, China has experienced rapid economic growth and achieved remarkable success. But we have rarely created technology products, literature, or art that truly move the world. We are still mostly producing low-cost goods. Some companies, even though they are essentially making small appliances, are labeled as star companies simply because they associate themselves with trendy internet concepts. But at the end of the day, they are still exporting cheap, cost-effectiveness-driven products to less developed markets. A more honest name for this would be Small Appliances 2.0. I believe we should move beyond this. China must step into creating higher value, more exceptional products. Today, the capital market is extremely active. Many companies are no longer focused on their products. Instead, they focus on storytelling, hype, and making quick money. People are no longer willing to quietly dedicate themselves to hard work. At the same time, utilitarian thinking among young people is on the rise. If you ask them about their dreams, the honest answer is often, "It's not about what I like, it's about what's worth it." They choose fields based on trends. When telecommunications was hot and companies like Huawei paid well, they studied telecom. When finance became popular, they switched to finance. Now, with the rise of internet startups, many people jump in simply because it's the trend, regardless of whether they like it or are good at it. The goal is just to become part of the elite. But in reality, they don't realize that only by doing what you truly care about can you do something well. And only with higher ideals can you go far. If all you care about is whether something is worth it, and not whether you love it, then all that remains is vanity and comparison, not real ambition. In the long run, I believe this mindset is harmful to China's future. Looking at DJI's own experience, it is clear that focusing on product innovation is what enables rapid growth, global competitiveness, and real commercial success. DJI started as a group of students pursuing their interest. We relied very little on external funding and never went public. Within 9 years, we reached annual revenues of $1 billion and captured about 70% of the global market. Today, DJI's flying cameras may very well be one of the first Chinese products in modern history to lead global technological trends. So I hope that the young people here today can also set higher ideals and make pursuing their own interests a core life goal. After 30 years of growth, China's economy has developed tremendously. We are standing on the shoulders of giants, but where is the bottleneck now? In my view, we lack a large number of truly insightful and reliable people. At DJI, the biggest constraint to our growth has never been the market, nor funding, nor capital. Instead, it's the fact that we face so many opportunities, a vast blue ocean, yet lack enough people who can truly understand problems, think them through, and execute effectively. People with real insight and a commitment to truth and innovation have become extremely scarce. For companies, reliable talent is critical. For a nation's economic development, it is even more essential. The average thinking capability of a company determines its competitive position. The same is true for a country. What defines a reliable person? It means being able to see the essence of a problem and, among many conflicting opinions, choose the best solution. This is precisely what our current education system lacks. Even students who perform well academically at top universities may not succeed in the real world. They often need to be reshuffled. Our current system evaluates knowledge, but barely evaluates whether someone is truly capable and reliable. Learning knowledge is important, but we have neglected the development of critical thinking. Students are placed on a predefined track. They're told to keep their heads down and run faster than others. They're not encouraged to look up, to question direction, or to design their own path. Yet these capabilities are exactly what matters most in business, art, and innovation. Our system favors students who are compliant and average, rather than those who pursue truth and independent thinking. Without these abilities, it is very difficult to find breakthroughs in real-world creative work. This is why we created RoboMaster. We want to use this platform to address the gap in engineering and technical talent development. Today, we have celebrities in entertainment, sports, and media, but we don't have stars who are known for being truly capable problem solvers. Formula One racing made drivers like Michael Schumacher global icons. Why can't we create a competition where engineers become stars? Our goal is to build a university-level competition league, a robot competition that is exciting, competitive, and widely watched. We want to attract young people and give investors a stage where they can shine. The competition is team-based, developing both technical and management skills. Only teams with real competitiveness and deep insight can win. I believe that if competitions like this are widely adopted, they can complement the current education system and significantly increase the number of capable engineers and leaders. After 2 years of effort, we have finally created the first RoboMaster competition. This is a platform where truth is tested through practice, where truly outstanding individuals and teams can emerge. We aim to inspire creativity and develop critical thinking through new methods. This kind of competition won't just produce athletes like Yao Ming or Michael Jordan. It can produce innovators like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. If this model can be widely adopted, it will cultivate a new generation of talent and drive both corporate and national technological progress. To all the participants, I want to say this. Don't just see yourself as competitors. Think of yourself as entrepreneurs, pioneers of a brand new form of intellectual competition. The World Cup, the NBA, the Formula One all started from nothing, in uncertainty. If you are passionate about this competition and have ideas, we welcome you to join us in shaping its future. Thank you. End quote. Great speech. I also highly recommend that you check out the RoboMaster videos online. Just search RoboMaster, and they have an official website. There's a lot of very intense, high-quality videos on there. They're amazing. Watching these teams compete makes you fired up. The game is different from BattleBots, where it is just about destroying the opponent. It is kind of like Dota or League of Legends with real robots. There's a lot of team strategy tactics that go into the game. And with cameras covering the game from different angles, including the player's facial expressions, RoboMaster is trying to create an experience for the audience and to promote the stars, the young engineers, just like any sports or esports. I think Wang Tao really wanted this to be the next big thing, a league some sort. He created documentaries, reality shows, and even a series of anime to get attention from the younger generation. He puts a team behind this effort. RoboMaster competition remains one of the main tools for DJI to recruit young engineers. Participants who show talents during the competition would usually get an offer from DJI to join the team. It serves as a great marketing tool to position DJI as the innovative and fun company to work at for college students. It is still going strong after 10 years. So far, we have covered the first 10 years of DJI from 2006 to 2016. That was the startup phase, the period when Wang Tao and his team went from a tiny company making flight control systems to the undisputed leader in consumer drones. For the next 10 years, I won't go into the same level of details because DJI is no longer a small founder-led startup struggling to survive. By 2016, the company already had more than 5,000 employees, and it would only become much bigger and more complex from there. But the most important point is DJI did not stop winning after the Phantom or Mavic. The second decade proved that DJI was not a one-hit wonder. It had developed a real product philosophy and repeatable way of building category-defining hardware. First off, DJI continued to dominate the consumer drone market and kept reinventing the category. Since 2016, it has launched new consumer drones at an astonishing pace, roughly every 6 months, across different product families such as Air, Mini, FPV, Avata, Neo, and others. The one that blows my mind is the FPV series. The first person view is something you have to experience yourself or search drone racing. And it's very intense. Over time, DJI built a highly defensible product matrix covering nearly every major user tier and price range. Beginners, hobbyists, travel creators, FPV enthusiasts, prosumers. There is a DJI drone for almost everyone. And that leaves very little room for competitors to enter. And DJI did not stop at consumer drones. It expanded into industrial and commercial use cases as well. Agriculture, surveying, public safety, filmmaking, inspections, you name it. And broadly speaking, DJI kept creating new product lines for different users. And vertically, it pushed further down and up the technology stack in order to lower cost, to improve performance, and control the user experience more tightly. Over the years, DJI began developing more of its own key technologies in-house, including ASICs for important modules such as flight control and video transmission. Back in 2010, most of the chips inside a DJI drone were from vendors abroad like Intel, Samsung, TI, etc. And since then, DJI started consolidating chips with custom silicons. As you can see on this teardown picture, most of the ICs are developed by DJI internally. And most of the product lines are not heavily reliant on Western component suppliers anymore. It also invested heavily in computer vision and autonomous flight. enabling drones to recognize gestures, track subjects, avoid obstacles, and understanding their surroundings more intelligently. It also spent years working on autonomous driving, related control modules involving cameras and LiDAR, an effort that was eventually spun out into a separate company. All of this points to the same thing. DJI was never just assembling drones. It was building a deep technology platform. One of the most important proofs of DJI methodology, however, came outside of drones. In recent years, DJI pioneered the pocket camera category. By leveraging capabilities it already mastered, gimbal stabilization, camera integration, miniaturization, control systems, and industrial design, it created the Osmo Pocket line for vloggers, filmmakers, and creators who wanted something far more portable and intuitive than a traditional camera rig. Over time, the Pocket evolved beyond a niche creator tool and entered the mainstream as a device for everyday users to document daily life. Pocket 3 in particular is a breakout product. There's a story that its opening action was inspired by the satisfying click of a Zippo lighter. That same small mechanical delight when the device comes alive in your hand. That kind of a detail captures something essential about DJI. Its products are not just technically strong, but emotionally convincing. It attracted a lot of the female customers as well. Remember, historically, DJI's drones are really popular, but just among male customers. And the market went crazy about this Pocket 3 camera. They sold over 10 million units in less than 2 years after launch, with retail price at around $500. That is roughly 5 billion in revenue. And according to Wang Tao, in 2026, January, February, sales already increased by 60 to 70% year over year. So it is quickly becoming a big part of the overall revenue for DJI. And this is why the second decade of DJI matters so much. It shows that DJI's success was not tied to one lucky market or one lucky product. The company has a winning formula, and I call it the DJI way. And that is a visionary founder who is only interested in becoming a category leader. Also, with world-class engineering and supply chain capabilities. And then lastly, you're targeting the global market, not third world countries, but the wealthiest countries in the world. And you might think there's nothing special about this formula because Apple, Dyson, Tesla, they all follow something similar. However, no Chinese company has done it before. Like Wang Tao talked about in his RoboMaster speech, most Chinese companies were doing low value added manufacturing work. That's how China was positioned in the global supply chain before. No one believes that Chinese companies could lead innovation. No one outside of China believed it. No one in China believed it either. DJI changed that impression. Not only that, I think DJI inspired a lot more companies to follow suit. Bamboo Lab is probably the best example of the DJI way. Hao Ye joined DJI in 2012, and before he left the company, he led the entire consumer drone business. He was the number 2 guy at DJI after Wang Tao. Around 2020, he saw an opportunity to revolutionize 3D printing to make it dramatically better. At the time, consumer 3D printing already had a passionate community. People loved it, but they suffered because calibration, failed prints, slow speed, noisy machines, air pollution, endless tweaking. It was still a hobbyist product. Bamboo Lab turned the 3D printer into a more complete machine with high-speed motion control, auto-calibration, LiDAR assisted sensing, multi-material system, software workflow, and a much more polished out-of-box experience. And that is the same logic as DJI drones. Take something difficult, integrate the whole system, and make the complexity disappear for the user. By 2025, Bamboo Lab had become the top-selling brand in the global consumer 3D printer market with about 37% share. Their annual revenue exceeds $1.5 billion already. What an amazing accomplishment by a former DJI product manager. Roborock is another great example. You may have already used their house cleaning robots. We have 2 Roborock cleaning robots in our house. The founder and CEO of Roborock, named Changjing, he and I are from the same city in Hunan, a small city called Yueyang. So shout out to Changjing. Super, super proud of him. Roborock was founded in 2014. iRobot back then was the dominating brand globally, but their robots were dumb. They bumped around, got stuck, missed spots, and needed babysitting. Roborock attacked the category with LiDAR navigation sensors, mapping, better suction, mopping capability, docks, and software. Again, the formula is familiar. Take a frustrating product category, use engineering to solve the real pain, and keep improving the whole user experience. Since 2024, Roborock has become the world's #1 smart cleaning robot brand according to IDC. iRobot, on the other hand, filed for bankruptcy in 2025, mainly due to fierce competition from China. Insta360 is the camera example. It was founded by Liu Jinkang in 2015. For a long time, GoPro defined action cameras, but Insta360 did not try to copy GoPro. It found a different user insight. Creators do not just want a camera, they want impossible shots made easy. The invisible selfie stick, 360 degrees capture, AI editing, reframing after the shot, these are not just features. They change the creator workflow. That is product power. It is not only about image quality. It is about giving users a new way to capture themselves and tell stories. Insta360 went public in China in 2025, and its IPO surge valued the company at roughly $10 billion, making the founder Liu Jinkang a billionaire, a very young billionaire. Insta360 and DJI are actually competing head-to-head in recent years. Insta360 released Anti-Gravity A1, the world's first 8K 360 drone, and DJI released the Osmo 360 camera in response. Unfortunately, GoPro's stock lost 98% of its peak value. They're really not that relevant nowadays. Note that Changjing from Roborock and Liu Jinkang from Insta360, they never worked at DJI, but I'm certain that they were inspired by DJI's story. The following 2 founders, though, are DJI alumni. Wang Xingxing, the founder of Unitree Robotics, briefly interned at DJI for about 2 months, and then founded Unitree in 2016. Wang Lei, founder of EcoFlow, worked at DJI Battery Group for a few years before founding the portable power stations company in 2017. So you get my point. There's so many other examples. China is no longer just the factory behind other people's brands. China now has founders, product managers, engineers, and supply chains capable of defining global categories. DJI proved it first, and others are now proving it again. And of course, we should not forget the city where DJI was born. Shenzhen holds a special place in this story. DJI's rise would have been much harder anywhere else. The speed of the supply chain, the density of electronics manufacturing, the availability of components, the ability to prototype quickly, and the culture of hardware entrepreneurship all gave DJI an enormous advantage. In 1980, Shenzhen became China's first special economic zone. At the time, it was still a small city next to Hong Kong. But over the next few decades, it transformed into one of the densest electronics manufacturing ecosystems in the world. By the early 2000s, Shenzhen was already the beating heart of the global 3C supply chain, meaning computers, communications, and consumer electronics. Mobile phones, laptops, cameras, MP3 players, power adapters, batteries, motors, sensors, plastics, connectors, PCBs, everything was there. And what made Shenzhen special was not just scale, it was speed. If an engineer needed a custom PCB, a motor, a connector, a plastic housing, or a small mechanical part, it could be designed, sourced, fabricated, revised, and tested extremely quickly. In many other places, hardware iteration takes weeks or even months. In Shenzhen, it feels almost like software iterations. It would take hours, days at most. That is a massive advantage for a company like DJI. You cannot find a hub like Shenzhen anywhere else in the world. No wonder not just the DJI, but Bamboo Lab, Insta360, and many other hardware startups were born in Shenzhen and went on to conquer the world. Now, back to DJI's journey. As we are wrapping up here, it is worth noting that the second 10 years brought not only scale and success, but a new set of problems. During the first decade, Wang Tao was trying to prove that a small team of obsessive engineers could build world-class flying machines. During the second decade, he had to confront a harder question. How do you run a giant company without losing its soul? This became one of DJI's central challenges. As DJI grew bigger, Wang Tao began to feel that something inside the company was no longer right. The same loose, highly founder-driven environment that had once made DJI fast and creative could not scale forever. DJI had become too big to remain an engineering utopia. The company later uncovered corruption in areas such as sourcing and procurement. A few employees even got into prison for it. That was a painful but important moment. It forced Wang Tao to recognize that building an innovative product company and building a well-governed organization are not the same thing. He began studying management more seriously, including how Ren Zhengfei had built Huawei. He really admired Ren Zhengfei. Over time, DJI improved, but this was a very different kind of challenge from making a helicopter hover or designing a better gimbal. It required not only technical judgment, but self-reflection, structure, and discipline at the organizational level. At the same time, DJI was facing another challenge from outside, geopolitics. As the company became globally dominant, especially in drones, it also became a target. Restrictions and sanctions from the United States created real pressure and uncertainty, and financial loss. That undoubtedly affected DJI. But by this point, DJI was no longer just an American success story, or even mainly an American one. It had already become a truly global company with its customers, channels, and product relevance far beyond the US market. I believe in the first decade, the North America market is about 1/3 of DJI's revenue. Back then, there's not a big presence back in China for DJI even. But now, I think, DJI has dominated the Chinese market as well. They're going to be fine. There was also a third challenge, people. In the media, Wang Tao is often painted as a tyrant. And honestly, there's some truth to it. He can be harsh, controlling, and relentless. There are many stories about late-night messages, brutal comments, impossible standards, and how difficult it is to work under him. In this picture, you see the 5 co-founders at the Bamboo Lab. They all left DJI around 2020. So when many talented people left DJI, the media loved the simple explanation. They left because of Wang Tao. Yeah, there's some truth to that, but many of them also left because they were highly capable, highly ambitious, and had been trained inside one of the best hardware product company in the world. DJI stayed private. It did not need to go public. That meant some of the people who helped build it did not get the same kind of financial outcome they might have expected. At the same time, Shenzhen was and still is one of the best places in the world for a talented hardware team to start a company. Capital was available, the ecosystem was ready. So naturally, many of these people went on to build business of their own. In my opinion, that is not just a story of losing talent. It's actually a great legacy of Wang Tao of DJI. And here's, just to add a little bit of color, here's an interesting story. Back in 2016, Wang Tao drafted a DJI's new headquarters in Shenzhen named Castle of the Sky, in which the cafeteria only serves vegan food because he himself is a vegan. So media reported as Wang Tao is forcing DJI employees to only eat vegan food. When I first heard the story, I also thought, wow, he sounded very narcissist. But in a recent interview, Wang Tao explained that the cafeteria could only serve 1,000 people, and there are 7,000 employees. So most of them would eat elsewhere anyway. And he's just trying to provide a different option, a healthy option. And that tells you that his public image portrayed by the media might be far from who he really is. And yet, despite all of these challenges, governance, geopolitics, departures, misrepresentation, DJI remained extraordinarily strong. DJI did $12 billion in revenue in 2025, and it is projecting to bring in $15 billion in 2026, with more than $3 billion in profits. It is still one of the most important and profitable hardware companies in the world. That alone says something profound about the depth of the company Wang Tao built. What moved me most, though, was not the revenue nor the market share. It was Wang Tao's own reflection on what he is trying to prove now. In a recent interview, he said, "In the past, what I tried to demonstrate was this, that a young person bold enough to dream and act could create technology that leads the world through innovation. Now, I want to demonstrate another possibility, that an entrepreneur's journey is not only about exploring outward and conquering the world, but also about turning inward and overcoming one's inner demons." That, to me, is the real ending of this story. Because Wang Tao did conquer the world. He built a company from Shenzhen that reshaped an entire category and led the world in hardcore technology products. But in the end, the deeper challenge was never just about drones, cameras, or robots. It was about himself, his intensity, his standards, his contradictions, his blind spots, and his need to keep growing even after winning. And that is exactly why he belongs to this podcast. Because conquering the world is not enough. You also have to conquer yourself. And maybe that is why I want to end with one of Wang Tao's most revealing lines after 20 years of building DJI, echoing the famous or infamous comment he made 10 years ago. "The world is incredibly dumb, and so am I." Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time.